Johnny's class was learning vocabulary in health class, thanks in large part to Johnny's use of obscene words. The teacher was going down the list, asking students to use the words in a sentence. Rectum, she said, and Johnny eagerly waved his hand, but she had some experience with Johnny, so she called on Susie instead. The next word was defecate, and again she thought it best not to call on Johnny despite his enthusiastically raised hand. Finally, she came to urinate, and figured Johnny couldn't do much harm with that one. Sure enough, he raised his hand, practically leaping out of his desk to make sure she saw him. Okay, fine, Johnny, she said reluctantly. Urinate, Johnny said. Teacher, urinate. But if your boobs were bigger, you'd be a 9.
A wife and husband are having money issues. One day, they decide to have the wife work the corner. Later that night, the husband goes to pick the wife up. He asks, "How much did you make, sweetie?" She answers, "I made $200.50. The husband says, "What asshole gave you 50 cents? She replies, "All of them." Johnny's neighbor just had a baby. Sadly, the baby was born without any ears. When the mom and baby came back home from the hospital, Johnny's family was invited over to see the baby. Before they left their house, Johnny's dad had a chat with him and explained how the baby had no ears. Johnny's dad also told him that if he so much as mentioned anything about the baby's missing ears, or even said the word ears, he would get the hiding of his life when they came back home. Johnny told his dad he understood and agreed not to mention the baby's lack of ears. Johnny looks in the bassinet and says, "Wow, what a beautiful baby." The mother replies, "Why, thanks, Johnny. He has beautiful feet, beautiful hands, a cute nose, and really beautiful eyes. Is he able to see all right?" "Yes," says the mom. "We are so grateful. The doctor said he will have perfect vision." "That is great," says Johnny, because he'd be stuffed if he needed glasses.
So, what did you do to Stas?
Little sis, your husband is a rare fool.
He says you're an asshole. What happened?
Well, I am an asshole, that's clear. But your husband came to me today for a steamer. I was just boiling some young potatoes, so he asked me, how I clean them, because he was tired of using a knife. I honestly told him that I use a metal sponge for cast iron pans and scrub with it. Fast and safe. That's it. He took the steamer and left. Called me an hour later, screaming all sorts of nice words, calling me a pervert. But you explained to him that a car cleaning brush, the one you hurt yourself with in my garage when you were 15, with a wooden handle and metal bristles, is not the same as a metal spring sponge, and these things are not interchangeable. How many potatoes did he clean before he had to bandage his hands?
3. Sorry, bro. You're the best in the world. But Stas is still mad at you.
No big deal. We'll sort it out. I just don't get how in a family of engineers, a man in his 30s, could be born with absolutely no understanding of basic mechanics. But he loves me. That's all. Kisses. I'll go bandage the poor guy.
Johnny was doing his math homework. He says out loud, 1 plus 6, that son of a bitch, is 7. 4 plus 4, that son of a bitch, is 8. His mom overhears this and is shocked. She says to him, "What are you doing, Johnny?" Johnny replies, "I am just doing my math homework." "And is this how your teacher taught you to do it?" the mother asks. "Yes," Johnny replies. The mother is now angry and immediately phones Johnny's teacher. "What on earth are you teaching my son in class?" she asks. The teacher replies, "Right now we are learning mathematical addition." The mother asks, "And are you teaching them to say 1 plus 6, that son of a bitch, is 7? After the teacher stopped laughing hysterically, she answered, "What I taught them to say was 1 plus 6, the sum of which is 7.
A guy comes back from a trip and visits his friend's house where he left his cat. First guy, "Hey man, how's the cat?" The friend, "It's dead." First guy, "Fuck man, You could at least be a little less blunt. The friend. How? I don't know. Maybe tell me he was playing with a ball close to the window, the ball fell down, and he went after it or something? Any news about Grandma? Well, your grandma was playing with a ball close to the window?
A kid sees their grandma taking pills and asks, "Grandma, why do you need to take all those pills?" Well, Grandma needs to take the green medicine for her headaches, but the green pills give her diarrhea. So Grandma needs to take the yellow pills for the diarrhea, but those pills always make Grandma very depressed. Because of her depression, Grandma needs to take the black pills, but those always give her high blood pressure. To cure the high blood pressure, Grandma has to take the red pills, but those make her always very horny. That's why Grandpa has to take the blue pills.
A polar bear cub who lives at the North Pole. He asks his dad, "Am I a polar bear?" His dad says, "I'm a polar bear and your mother's a polar bear. That means you're a polar bear." The cub asks, "Are you sure?" Dad says, "Of course I'm sure. Go ask your mother." The cub asks his mother, "Am I a polar bear?" Mom says, "Yes, I'm a polar bear and your father's a polar bear. That means you're a polar bear." Cub asks, "Are you sure?" Mom says, "Of course I'm sure. Go ask your grandma." The cub asks his grandma, "Grandma, am I a polar bear?" Grandma says, "Yes, honey. Your father is a polar bear and your mother is a polar bear. That makes you a polar bear." Cub asks, "Well, are you sure I'm not maybe a grizzly bear? Or maybe a black bear?" Grandma says, "Of course I'm sure. Why do you ask?" Cub says, "Well, I'm fucking cold." A father hears his daughter praying. Daughter, "God bless Mama, God bless Daddy, God bless Grandma, and goodbye, Grandpa." Father, "Why did you say goodbye, Grandpa?" Daughter, "I don't know. It felt right." The next day, Grandpa drops dead. The father thought it was just a freaky coincidence. A week later, father again hears his daughter praying. Daughter, "God bless Mama, God bless Daddy, and goodbye, Grandma." The next day, the grandma dies. Now the father is worried. A week later, he hears his daughter praying again. Daughter, "God bless Mama, and goodbye, Daddy." The father starts panicking, can't sleep all night, and goes to work scared, thinking this is the day he dies. He feels safe in his office and thinks if he makes it to midnight, he would be safe. Midnight comes and he goes home, relieved the death of his parents had nothing to do with his daughter's prayers. When he reaches home, his wife is pissed and asks where he's been all day. "Honey, I've had the worst day of my life." "Tell me about it," replied the wife. "The mailman died on our porch."
Wolf knocked down the doors of the house where Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma were chilling. "Wolf, yo girls, here's what's gonna happen. You two are gonna do everything I tell you to do, all right?" Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma were shocked at the sudden intrusion of this big, bad talking wolf. They didn't know what else to do, so they reluctantly nodded. "Wolf, all right, both of you, run 10 circles around the house." Little Red Riding Hood, "Okay, but can I please run 10 circles more instead of my grandma? She's old and weak and can't run very far." Wolf, "I said what I said, now go." Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma realized that they couldn't reason with the wolf. So poor grandma had no choice but to run 10 circles around the house, just like Little Red Riding Hood did. Wolf, "All right, girls, more exercise. Now do 20 push-ups, both of you." Little Red Riding Hood, "Oh, please, Mr. Wolf, can I do 20 more push-ups instead of my grandma? Can't you see she can barely breathe from all that running? Have mercy, please." Wolf, "I said what I said, now go." Almost an hour has passed, but grandma somehow manages to do 20 push-ups. Wolf, "All right, now for a different form of exercise. I'm going to have sex with both of you." Little Red Riding Hood, "Please, Mr. Wolf, can you do me twice instead of my grandma? You see, she isn't going to survive any more of your abuse. She is barely alive rig now. Grandma, he said what he said. An old man and his grandson are sitting on a porch. The old man pulls out a cigar and starts puffing it. The grandson asks, "Granddad, can I have a puff?" The old man replies, "Does your touch your asshole?" The boy replies, "Of course not, Grandpa." "Then you aren't man enough for this," he says. Soon after, the man pulls out a bottle of scotch and starts taking swigs of it. "Grandpa, can I have a sip?" the boy asks. "Does your touch your asshole?" He asks back. "Grandpa, you know it doesn't," he said, getting flustered. "Well, then you know you aren't man enough," he says and returns to his drink. The boy is mad and goes into the house to play with his toys. He comes back out about 45 minutes later with a plate of cookies. "Can I have one?" the old man asked. "Does your touch your asshole?" the boy questioned him. "Of course it does. Otherwise, I wouldn't have smoked the cigar or drunk the scotch," he said. "Then go f*** yourself, because Grandma made these cookies for me," he shouted at the old man and went back into the house. A nurse notices that a doctor is walking around with a rectal thermometer behind his ear. Embarrassed, she pulls him aside to discreetly inform him. "Doctor," says the nurse, "you've got a rectal thermometer behind your ear." The doctor pulls the thermometer from behind his ear and looks at it incredulously. "Nurse, do you know what this means?" "Some asshole's got my pencil." An elderly couple had dinner at another couple's house, and after eating, the wives left the table and went into the kitchen. The two gentlemen were talking, and one said, "Last night we went out to a new restaurant, and it was really great. I would recommend it very highly." The other man said, "What is the name of the restaurant?" The first man thought and finally said, "What is the name of that flower you give to someone you love?" "You know, the one that's red and has thorns." "Do you mean a rose?" "Yes, that's the one," replied the man. He then turned towards the kitchen and yelled, "Rose, what's the name of that restaurant we went to last night?" A grocer is restocking the vegetables when a woman taps him on the shoulder and asks, "Excuse me, sir, but where do you keep the spinach?" The grocer replies, "Well, ma'am, we're out of spinach today. We'll have more tomorrow, so please come back then." She nods and walks away. A few minutes later, she returns and taps him again. "Sir, I was wondering where I could find the spinach." Confused, the grocer says, "Ma'am, we are out of spinach today. We'll have more tomorrow morning." She smiles and thanks him, then walks off again. Moments later, tap, tap, tap. "Pardon me, but do you know where the spinach is?" Now visibly irritated, the grocer says, "Let me ask you something. How do you spell dog, like in dogmatic?" She replies, "D-O-G. Good. Now, how do you spell cat, like in catatonic?" "C-A-T. Perfect," says the grocer. "Now, how do you spell freakin', as in spinach?" She pauses. "F. Wait a second. There's no F in spinach." The grocer throws his hands up and shouts, "Lady, that's what I'm trying to tell you." A struggling street performer was trying to earn a few dollars outside a zoo when one of the zookeepers suddenly approached him with a strange offer. The zoo's most popular gorilla had unexpectedly died, and management was desperate to keep visitors happy until a replacement arrived. The zookeeper asked the performer if he would wear a gorilla costume and pretend to be the attraction for a few days. Needing the money, he agreed. The next morning, he climbed into the gorilla enclosure wearing the full suit. To his surprise, people loved him. He swung from ropes, rolled around, made funny faces at children, and quickly became the zoo's biggest attraction. Crowds got larger every day. After a few weeks, however, he noticed that the lion in the next enclosure was attracting even more attention. Determined not to lose his spotlight, he climbed to the top of the enclosure and began hanging dramatically over the lion's area. Visitors went wild with excitement. The zookeeper was thrilled and even gave him a raise. Everything went perfectly until one terrible afternoon. While showing off above the lion's cage, he lost his grip and fell straight inside. Panicked, he ran in circles screaming, "Help! Help! Somebody save me!" The lion slowly walked over, pinned him down, and quietly whispered in his ear, "Be quiet, you fool, or we're both getting fired." The pastor asked if anyone in the congregation would like to express praise for answered prayers. Susie Smith stood and walked to the podium. She said, "I have a prayer. 2 months ago, my husband, Phil, had a terrible bicycle wreck, and his scrotum was completely crushed. The pain was excruciating, and the doctors didn't know if they could help him." You could hear a muffled gasp from the men in the congregation as they imagined the pain that poor Phil must have experienced. "Phil was unable to hold me or the children," she went on, "and every move caused him terrible pain. We prayed as the doctors performed a delicate operation, and it turned out they were able to piece together the crushed remnants of Phil's scrotum and wrap wire around it to hold it in place." Again, the men in the congregation cringed and squirmed uncomfortably as they imagined the horrible surgery performed on Phil. "Now," she announced in a quivering voice, "thank the Lord, Phil is out of the hospital, and the doctors say that with time, his scrotum should recover completely." All the men sighed with unified relief. The pastor rose and tentatively asked if anyone else had something to say. A man stood up and walked slowly to the podium. He said, "Hi, I'm Phil." The entire congregation held its breath. "I just want to tell my wife, the word is sternum." A priest took a beautiful woman in his bedroom. He put a Bible on the bed and asked the woman to lie on the bed. When the priest tried to have sex with her, the woman shouted, "Father, what are you doing?" The priest replied, "Calm down, my child. Holy Bible under you, Holy Father above you, and holy water passing through." During a high school biology class, the teacher decided to test the students' homework knowledge. She looked around the room and called out, "Jessica, can you tell me which part of the human anatomy expands to 10 times its original size when it gets stimulated?" Jessica's face turned bright red. She stood up completely outraged and snapped, "That is absolutely repulsive. I am not answering that, and you shouldn't be asking us things like that." The teacher calmly rolled her eyes and turned to the rest of the class. "Jamie, how about you?" Jamie smiled and answered instantly, "That's simple, miss. It's the pupil of the eye." "Spot on, Jamie. Excellent job," the teacher said approvingly. She then turned her attention back to Jessica, who was still crossing her arms in protest. The teacher locked eyes with her and announced, "As for you, young lady, I have 3 distinct things to tell you. First, it is very clear you didn't do last night's reading. Second, you have a seriously dirty mind. And third, you are setting yourself up for a massive disappointment later in life." A young schoolteacher was writing down a massive weekend assignment for her 6th grade class. Because the list was so long, she had to stretch way up to reach the very top of the blackboard. As she was reaching up, a boy in the front row suddenly burst out giggling. The teacher whipped around, annoyed, and demanded, "What is so funny, Pat? I just caught a glimpse of one of your garters, miss." Pat snickered. "That is entirely inappropriate. Pack your bags and get out of my room," she snapped. "I don't want to see your face in this school for 3 whole days." Trying to shake off the awkwardness, the teacher turned back to the board. She realized she forgot to write the main heading, so she stretched even higher, standing right on her tiptoes. Instantly, an even louder burst of laughter erupted from across the room. She spun around again, furious. "Billy, what could possibly be so amusing? I just saw both of your garters, ma'am." Billy laughed. "Out, right now," she shouted, pointing to the door. "Your punishment is far worse. You are suspended for 3 weeks." Flustered, embarrassed, and completely stressed out, the teacher turned around to grab her notes, but accidentally knocked her eraser off the ledge. It clattered to the floor, and without thinking, she bent right over from the waist to pick it up. Suddenly, a booming roar of laughter shook the entire classroom. The teacher snapped her head up, only to see little Johnny already packing up his backpack, throwing his jacket over his shoulder, and casually walking toward the exit. "And just where do you think you're going, Johnny?" she yelled. Johnny looked back over his shoulder and shrugged. "Well, based on what I just saw, my school days are officially over." A boy came home from school looking miserable. He dropped his backpack by the door and sat at the kitchen table with a long face. His mother noticed immediately. "What happened?" "I got a 0 on my geography exam," he said. A zero, she asked, shocked. Why? The teacher asked me a question about Portugal, and I didn't know the answer. His mother frowned. What was the question? The boy sighed. She asked, where is Portugal? His mother slammed her hand on the table. That teacher is ridiculous. Giving you a zero for something like that? I'm calling the principal. Then she paused and said, but first, we'll find Portugal ourselves. She pulled out a map of the state and spread it across the table. They searched carefully, but Portugal was nowhere to be found. Strange, she muttered. Then she found a map of the region. Still nothing. Finally, she unfolded a large map of the city and checked every street, neighborhood, and corner. After a long silence, she shook her head and said, I swear, Portugal can't be far from here. The boy looked up. Why? His mother replied, because our maid is from Portugal, and she comes here to work every day on her bicycle. A patient went to see his doctor for a routine checkup. After a few tests, he asked hopefully, do you think I'll live another 50 years, doctor? The doctor looked at him for a moment. How old are you now? He asked. 40, the patient replied. The doctor nodded. Do you drink, gamble, or chase women? No, the man said. I don't drink, I don't gamble, and I avoid women entirely. I don't really have any vices at all. The doctor leaned back in his chair, studying him quietly. Then he said, then tell me, why exactly do you want to live another 50 years? An old man bought a well from a smart alec. The next day, while on his way to the market, he met the smart alec who told him, I have sold the well to you, but not the water. If you use the water, you'll have to pay for it. The old man stared at him for a moment. Then he replied, I was in fact planning to come to your place and ask you to empty the water. If you don't, you'll have to pay the rent for storing it in my well.